Welcome to Unheard Stories, the place where untold tales of betrayal, revenge, and justice come to life. Before we dive into today's gripping story, tell me where you're watching from? Drop your city in the comments below. I'd love to know where our audience is joining us from. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on more jaw-dropping stories like this one. Now imagine this, you're living what seems like a happy, ordinary life. You trust your partner of 20 years, share your dreams, raise your child together, and think you know everything about them. But what if, one day, that trust is shattered by a devastating discovery? What if the person you've shared your life with isn't just keeping secrets but actively plotting against you, against your happiness, your dignity, and even your future? How far would you go to uncover the truth? What would you do if you found out your partner had cruel plans to destroy your life? In today's story, we're diving into a world of deception, manipulation, and revenge so perfectly executed it will leave you speechless. It's a tale about betrayal at its worst, but also about strength, strategy, and ultimate justice. A husband discovers not only that his wife is cheating on him, but also that she's plotting to break him down piece by piece, physically, emotionally, and financially. Little did she know he had a plan of his own. Get ready for twists and turns, shocking revelations, and a revenge so calculated you'll be on the edge of your seat. This story isn't just about betrayal. It's about taking back control and showing just how powerful truth and resolve can be. Let's get started. Ethan was the kind of man people admired for his quiet strength and steadfast nature. A dedicated family man, he worked hard as a logistics manager for a regional company, putting in long hours to ensure his wife and daughter lived comfortably. At home, Ethan was a hands-on dad and husband, always ready to help Leah with her homework or cook dinner when Mia had her hands full. However, his most endearing trait, his ability to focus on the positives and overlook flaws, was also his blind spot. He was often oblivious to subtle red flags, the ones that hinted something wasn't quite right. Ethan's daily routine was predictable. Early mornings spent at the office, evenings at home with his family, and weekends tinkering in the garage or catching up on household chores. He wasn't flashy or overly ambitious, but he believed in the value of hard work, loyalty, and love. To him, his marriage to Mia was built on a foundation of mutual trust. But as he would soon discover, not all foundations are as solid as they appear. Mia, on the other hand, had always been the go-getter of the family. A sharp and ambitious business consultant, she had carved out a name for herself in the competitive corporate world. Over the years, her career had flourished, and she often took pride in her ability to juggle the demands of work and family life. To outsiders, Mia seemed like the perfect wife and mother, poised, confident, and endlessly capable. But behind the facade, there were cracks in Mia's carefully constructed image. She had grown increasingly distant over the past few years, her laughter less frequent, her gaze often distracted. Where she once enjoyed quiet evenings with Ethan and Leah, she now seemed preoccupied, glued to her phone or laptop, working late into the night or leaving the house for mysterious business meetings. Ethan, ever trusting, chalked it up to stress. After all, Mia had always been a high achiever. He admired her determination and respected her independence, but he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she was pulling away from him. The little things started to pile up, half-hearted excuses about late nights at the office, a sudden interest in fitness, and an emotional distance that felt like a wall between them. What Ethan didn't see, but Leah began to notice, were the subtle manipulations. Mia had developed a knack for making Ethan feel inadequate, using pointed comments disguised as jokes or minor criticisms. "Maybe you should try to dress more professionally," she'd say, or, "real men know how to take charge." Ethan often laughed them off, but Leah could sense the sting beneath her father's calm exterior. Leah was their 19-year-old daughter, home for winter break from her freshman year at college. Intelligent and observant, she had a natural curiosity that sometimes got her into trouble. But Leah loved her parents, and she wanted to believe in the happy family dynamic they'd built over the years. Still, Leah wasn't blind. She noticed the tension between her parents, the forced smiles and awkward silences that seemed to linger after every conversation. She tried to brush it off as normal marital ups and downs, but a part of her couldn't ignore the way her mother's demeanor had changed. Mia was colder now, sharper in her tone, and her interactions with Ethan lacked the warmth Leah remembered from her childhood. It was during this winter break that Leah would become the unwitting catalyst for a series of events that would unravel their seemingly perfect family life. One evening, as she borrowed Mia's laptop to work on a college paper, she stumbled upon something she wasn't meant to see: emails, videos, and chat logs that hinted at a secret life Mia had been hiding. For years, their family had appeared picture-perfect to the outside world. Ethan and Mia were the quintessential suburban couple, raising their daughter in a cozy home filled with laughter and love. They hosted barbecues in the summer, took annual family trips, and celebrated every milestone together. But beneath the surface, the cracks had been forming, small and barely noticeable at first, until they threatened to break everything apart. Ethan was too trusting, too focused on maintaining harmony, to see what was happening. Mia, ambitious and calculating, had grown discontent with the life they'd built and was orchestrating her escape. And Leah, the perceptive observer, was about to stumble into a secret that would shatter the illusion of their family forever. What had started as a simple desire for independence on Mia's part had evolved into something darker, something that would expose just how far she was willing to go to get what she wanted. As the family gathered for what should have been a peaceful winter break, the stage was set for betrayal, discovery, and a revenge story that no one saw coming. It was an ordinary evening in the Peterson household. Dinner was finished, the dishes had been cleared, and the family had retreated to their usual evening routines. Ethan was in the garage fixing a stubborn shelf, a quiet escape where he could lose himself in small projects. Mia had gone upstairs, claiming she needed some quiet time to unwind after a long day of work. Leah, perched at the kitchen counter, was finishing a college paper on Mia's laptop, her own having succumbed to a broken screen just days before. At first, everything seemed normal. Leah typed away, sipping her tea and occasionally glancing at her notes. But as she went to bookmark a web page for research, something unusual caught her eye. A list of saved bookmarks titled Advisor X, Sessions, Plan Execution, and Control Tactics stood out against the otherwise mundane list of websites. Her curiosity got the better of her and she clicked. The first file opened to a series of emails between Mia and someone named Advisor X. Leah's face paled as she read the words on the screen. The messages weren't business-related as she had initially thought. They were chillingly personal and disturbingly calculated. Advisor X was coaching Mia on how to manipulate Ethan, emotionally, financially, and psychologically. Leah's hands trembled as she scrolled through the emails. Phrases like withhold intimacy, belittle his masculinity, and break his spirit jumped out at her. It wasn't just cruel, it was deliberate, a twisted strategy to mold Ethan into a submissive and dependent husband. But the worst was yet to come. Leah stumbled upon another thread, this one addressed to someone named Ryan. The tone of these emails was entirely different. They were intimate, flirtatious, and full of plans for secret meetings. Ryan wasn't just anyone. He was another married person, a successful salesman Mia had been seeing for months. The emails detailed their affair in explicit detail, alongside plans to leave their respective families and start a new life together. Leah sat frozen, her mind racing. This wasn't just infidelity, it was betrayal on a level she hadn't thought possible. How could her mother, her strong, composed, and seemingly perfect mother, do something like this to her father? Tears welled in her eyes as she realized she couldn't keep this to herself. She had to tell Ethan. Ethan was in the middle of tightening a screw when Leah found him in the garage. The look on her face stopped him in his tracks. She was pale, her lips trembling, and her usually confident demeanor was nowhere to be found. "Dad," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "you need to come inside. There's something you need to see." Confused but sensing the urgency, Ethan followed her to the kitchen. She handed him the laptop and stepped back, giving him space. "It's Mom's," she explained, her voice shaky. "I was using it for my paper and I found some things." Ethan's brow furrowed as he sat down and began to read. The first email made him pause. By the third, his stomach was in knots. And by the time he reached the messages with Ryan, his hands were shaking so badly he had to put the laptop down. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. Every word burned into his brain. The cold, calculated advice from Advisor X, the explicit messages to Ryan, the plans to leave him and Leah behind like they were disposable. He couldn't believe it. This was Mia, the woman he had loved and trusted for 2 decades. The mother of his child. The person he had built his life around. "What is this?" he whispered, more to himself than to Leah. What is this?" Leah placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, her voice soft but firm. "I don't know, Dad, but I knew you needed to see it. You don't deserve this." Ethan sat in silence, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. Disbelief, rage, humiliation, and an overwhelming sense of loss. Every memory he had of Mia, their first date, their wedding day, the birth of their daughter, was now tainted. He had always believed in their love even when things got tough. Now he realized it had all been a lie. Hours passed before Ethan could pull himself together enough to think clearly. He couldn't confront Mia outright. she would deny everything, twist the truth and turn the tables on him. He needed a plan, a way to protect himself and Leah from the fallout. Mia wasn't just cheating on him, she was plotting to destroy him, to make him weak and compliant. And Ryan? He wasn't just her lover, he was part of her escape plan. The thought made Ethan's blood boil, but he forced himself to stay calm. This wasn't the time for anger. It was the time for action. As Ethan closed the laptop, he looked up at Leah, who had been silently watching him. "Thank you," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't shown me this." Leah nodded, tears in her eyes. "We'll get through this, Dad. Whatever happens, we'll get through it together." Ethan hugged his daughter tightly, his resolve hardening. He didn't know what the next steps would be, but one thing was certain. Mia wasn't going to get away with this. Not without a fight. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, the words from those emails and messages flooded back, each one a fresh blow to his already shattered world. By morning he knew what he had to do. Confronting Mia without preparation would only give her the upper hand. He needed someone who could help him navigate the chaos and protect what mattered most: his daughter Leah and their future. Ethan's first call was to Emma, an old college friend who had gone on to become a highly respected lawyer. They hadn't spoken in years, but he trusted her completely. Emma had a reputation for her no-nonsense attitude and strategic brilliance. If anyone could help him untangle the mess Mia had created, it was her. "Emma," Ethan said over the phone, his voice strained, "I need your help. It's urgent." Emma picked up on the tension immediately. "Ethan? Are you okay? What's going on?" "It's about Mia. I can't explain everything over the phone, but she's been cheating on me. And it's worse than that, she's been plotting to destroy me." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Emma's calm, authoritative voice came through. "Meet me at my office this afternoon. Bring everything you have, emails, documents, anything that proves what's happening. We'll figure this out." When Ethan arrived at Emma's sleek downtown office, he looked every bit the broken man he felt inside. But Emma was all business. She led him to a private conference room and gestured for him to sit. "Start from the beginning," she said, her tone both kind and firm. "Tell me everything." Ethan took a deep breath and recounted the events of the past 24 hours. Leah's discovery, the emails from Advisor X, and Mia's affair with Ryan. As he spoke, Emma listened intently, jotting down notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "Ethan, this is bad. But it's not insurmountable. If you're ready to fight back, we can turn this around." Ethan nodded, his jaw set with determination. "I'll do whatever it takes. I just need to protect Leah and make sure Mia doesn't destroy everything." Emma began outlining a plan, her voice steady and confident. "First, we need to secure your finances. Set up a separate account that Mia can't access. You'll also need to establish a trust for Leah, a college fund that will be legally protected in the event of a divorce. This ensures that Mia can't touch it, no matter how messy things get." Ethan scribbled down notes, the wheels in his mind already turning. "And the evidence?" "That's the next step," Emma said. "We need to gather everything, emails, chat logs, videos. Document it all. The more irrefutable proof we have of her infidelity and manipulation, the stronger your position will be in court." Ethan hesitated, the enormity of the situation weighing on him. "You're saying I should just stay quiet? Pretend like everything's normal while I gather this evidence?" Emma nodded. "Exactly. If you confront her now, she'll either deny it or take steps to cover her tracks. You need to stay ahead of her. Keep your emotions in check and play the long game." The idea of pretending everything was fine felt almost unbearable to Ethan. Every time he looked at Mia, he'd be reminded of her betrayal, of the lies she'd told and the plans she'd made to destroy him. But he knew Emma was right. Confronting Mia too soon would only give her an advantage. Over the next few weeks, Ethan set his plan into motion. He opened a new bank account in his name and transferred a portion of his savings into it. With Emma's help, he also established a trust for Leah, ensuring that her future would be secure regardless of what happened. Meanwhile, he continued to collect evidence. Late at night, when Mia was asleep, he scoured her laptop for emails, videos, and chat logs, saving everything to an encrypted drive. Each piece of evidence felt like another dagger in his heart, but he pushed through the pain. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about protecting Leah and reclaiming his life. Maintaining the facade of normalcy was the hardest part. Ethan forced himself to smile through dinners with Mia, to engage in small talk as though nothing had changed. He even endured her subtle jabs, comments about his lack of ambition or unmanly habits, without flinching. Every word she spoke only strengthened his resolve. There were moments when he wanted to scream, to confront her with everything he knew. But he reminded himself of Emma's words, "Stay 2 steps ahead." Mia thought she was in control, but she had no idea that Ethan was quietly dismantling her plans piece by piece. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan felt a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time in months, maybe years, he was taking control of his life. And when the time came to confront Mia, he would be ready. She wouldn't just face the truth, she'd face the consequences. The moment Mia called Ethan into the kitchen, he knew something was coming. Her tone was falsely sweet, the kind she used when she thought she had the upper hand. She was standing by the counter, a glass of wine in her hand, tapping her nails against the rim as though savoring the anticipation. Ethan had seen this version of Mia before, the calculated, controlled persona she wore when she wanted to make someone feel small. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady but her eyes gleaming with a cold confidence. Ethan set down the book he'd been pretending to read and joined her, leaning casually against the counter. "All right," he said calmly, meeting her gaze. "What's on your mind?" Mia took a sip of her wine, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Ethan, I've been thinking. Our marriage, it hasn't exactly been ideal, has it? I've made sacrifices, done what needed to be done to keep this family afloat, but you've coasted. And I can't do it anymore." He raised an eyebrow, feigning curiosity. "Is that so?" "Yes," she said firmly, setting her glass down. "I've come to a decision. Things are going to change around here. And you're just going to have to accept that." Ethan nodded slowly, biting back a smile. "Change how exactly?" Mia took a deep breath, as though preparing for a grand revelation. "I've been seeing someone," she said, her voice tinged with defiance. "His name is Ryan. He's fulfilling needs that you can't. And if you want to stay in this marriage, you're going to have to accept that this is how things are now." She crossed her arms, her expression triumphant, as though expecting Ethan to crumble under the weight of her words. But he didn't flinch. "Interesting," Ethan said, his tone casual. "Because I already know about Ryan." The confidence drained from Mia's face in an instant. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. Ethan straightened, his calm demeanor hardening into something colder. "I know everything, Mia. About Ryan. About Advisor X. About your little plans to manipulate me into being some submissive, obedient husband. I've seen the emails, the videos, the chat logs. All of it." Mia's mouth opened, then closed again, her carefully constructed facade starting to crack. You went through my things?" she stammered, her voice rising with panic. "Oh, I didn't have to dig very far," Ethan said, his voice low and steady. "You were sloppy, Mia. And do you know who else I told? Ryan's wife." Mia's face went pale. "You what?" "Yeah," Ethan continued, his calm unraveling into a sharp edge. "I sent her every email, every video. She knows exactly what kind of man she's married to, and what kind of woman you are." The color drained from Mia's face entirely, but before she could respond, a furious pounding echoed through the house. The front door rattled under the force of someone's fists. Ethan glanced at Mia, whose eyes were wide with fear. Who is that?" she whispered, though the answer was obvious. "Oh, I think you know," Ethan said, making no move to answer the door. The pounding grew louder, followed by a muffled voice shouting, "Ethan. Mia. Open this door right now." It was Ryan, his voice shaking with rage. Mia's hands flew to her mouth as Ethan sauntered over to the window, peeking out to confirm the visitor. Ryan was red-faced, his body rigid with fury. "Mia," Ethan said, his voice dripping with mock concern, "you might want to explain yourself. He doesn't look too happy." Before she could respond, the flashing lights of a patrol car lit up the driveway. Ethan smirked, stepping back as 2 uniformed officers emerged from the car. "I thought this might happen," Ethan said, turning to Mia. "Ryan's wife mentioned he's got a bit of a temper, so I figured it'd be best to have some backup." The officers approached the porch, one of them speaking calmly to Ryan, who was now shouting incoherently. It didn't take long for them to escort him to the car, his protests growing weaker with each step. Inside, Mia stood frozen, her hands trembling as she watched her lover being taken away. When the door closed, she spun to face Ethan, her voice breaking. How could you do this to me?" Ethan stared at her, his expression devoid of sympathy. "You did this to yourself, Mia. You thought you could manipulate me, destroy our family, and walk away without consequences. Did you really think I'd let that happen?" She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time in years, Mia had no control, no leverage. She was utterly defeated. Ethan stepped closer, his voice steady but firm. You wanted power, Mia. Now you get to see what it feels like to lose everything. As the sound of the patrol car faded into the night, Mia stood in stunned silence, her grand plans crumbling into dust before her eyes. The legal proceedings began swiftly, with Ethan and Emma walking into court armed with an arsenal of evidence that left no room for doubt. Emails, chat logs, and videos, all meticulously catalogued, painted a clear picture of Mia's infidelity, manipulation, and outright cruelty. Emma presented everything with precision and poise, dismantling any arguments Mia's lawyer attempted to make. Mia sat across the table, her once confident demeanor replaced by a nervous stiffness. Each piece of evidence hit her like a wave, eroding the weak foundation of her defense. Her lawyer tried to argue for leniency, claiming the emails were private and irrelevant to the divorce. But Emma was ready, countering with legal precedents that made it clear. Everything found on shared property was admissible. When the dust settled, the judge's decision was unequivocal. Ethan was awarded full ownership of the family home and primary custody of Leah. Thanks to Emma's strategic maneuvering, Ethan also secured a significant share of Mia's business assets, ensuring financial stability for him and Leah moving forward. Mia, on the other hand, left the courtroom with little more than her personal belongings. Her ambitious plans to dominate and control had crumbled under the weight of her own actions. The social fallout was just as brutal. Word of Mia's affair and her manipulative schemes spread quickly through their tight-knit community. Former friends and business associates whispered behind her back, their judgment harsh and unrelenting. Clients began to pull out of contracts, unwilling to associate with someone whose personal life had imploded so spectacularly. Mia's once thriving consulting business, which she had built from the ground up, was now in shambles. The betrayal and scandal attached to her name were too much for her professional reputation to bear. She went from being a respected businesswoman to a pariah almost overnight. Leah too made her stance clear. After witnessing her mother's betrayal and the chaos it had unleashed, she cut ties with Mia completely. The trust and bond they once shared were irreparably broken. Leah's allegiance shifted entirely to Ethan, whom she now viewed as the parent who truly cared for and protected her. For Ethan, life didn't immediately return to normal, it was a process. The emotional scars left by Mia's betrayal ran deep, and there were moments when the weight of it all felt overwhelming. But instead of letting it break him, Ethan channeled his energy into rebuilding his life. His bond with Leah grew stronger as they navigated their new reality together. Without the tension and manipulation Mia had brought into their home, their conversations became more open and honest. They laughed more, spent time rediscovering shared interests, and leaned on each other for support. One evening as they sat together on the porch, Leah turned to Ethan and said, "I'm proud of you, Dad. You didn't just survive this, you rose above it." Her words were a balm to Ethan's wounded heart. In those quiet moments with Leah, he realized that despite everything he had lost, he had gained something invaluable, a deeper connection with his daughter and a renewed sense of purpose. Reflecting on the ordeal, Ethan found himself marveling at how much he had endured and overcome. The betrayal had shaken him to his core, forcing him to question everything he thought he knew about love, trust, and loyalty. But it had also revealed a strength he didn't know he possessed. Ethan thought back to Emma's advice, stay ahead of her. Be strategic. Following that guidance had not only protected him but had also given him the chance to reclaim his dignity. The revenge he had orchestrated wasn't just about exposing Mia's actions. It was about showing her, and himself, that he was stronger than she had ever imagined. As the months passed, Ethan found peace in the small victories. He no longer walked on eggshells in his own home. The tension that had once suffocated him was gone, replaced by a calm he hadn't felt in years. He started taking on projects around the house, turning it into a space that reflected the new chapter of his life. Leah thrived as well, her confidence and independence blossoming. Ethan made sure she knew she had his unwavering support, and together, they looked forward to a brighter future. Looking back, Ethan saw the experience as a painful but necessary turning point. Mia's betrayal had tested him in ways he never thought possible, but it had also freed him from a toxic relationship. In losing her, he had gained clarity, strength, and the opportunity to build a life that was truly his own. As he stood in the quiet of his now peaceful home, Ethan felt a sense of closure. The wounds Mia had inflicted would take time to heal, but they no longer defined him. He had weathered the storm, emerged stronger, and created a life that was at last his own. The road ahead was his to walk, and for the first time in years Ethan was ready. As Ethan sat in his quiet home, the house finally felt like a sanctuary. No longer was it filled with tension or manipulative games. Instead, it was a space of peace, a reflection of the life he was rebuilding with Leah by his side. For the first time in years he felt truly free. Reflecting on the journey, Ethan marveled at how far he had come. The betrayal that had once seemed insurmountable had instead become a turning point. Mia's manipulations, meant to break him, had instead exposed her own flaws and led to her undoing. It was ironic, really. Her elaborate plans to control him had only served to liberate him. The woman who had worked so hard to strip away his confidence now faced the consequences of her actions, while Ethan emerged stronger than ever. He thought about Leah, the daughter who had stood by him through it all, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. Despite the pain and chaos, their bond had grown stronger. Together, they had weathered the storm, proving that even in the darkest of times, there was light to be found. Ethan looked at the future with hope. He wasn't sure what it held, but he knew one thing: he would face it on his own terms. The wounds Mia had left behind would heal, and in their place there would be growth, strength, and resilience. Now let's talk about karma. Have you ever seen it work so perfectly? The way Mia's own schemes turned against her was almost poetic. If you've ever witnessed something similar, or have your own story to share, drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to Unheard Stories. Every week we bring you tales of betrayal, revenge, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of these gripping stories. Life doesn't always go as planned. Sometimes, it feels like everything is falling apart. But as Ethan's story shows, sometimes things have to fall apart so better things can fall into place. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Unheard Stories.